Well, I last week when I covered the first part of this lesson about the I am, I didn't know I was going to do it so quickly, the second part. But that's okay. We can cover the second part. We have it. I'm already prepared. I'm going to do a short review first. There's 8 I am statements of Jesus in the Gospel of John, and I'm going to just briefly cover the first few that we covered last week. The bread of life, Jesus declared, I am the bread of life. He who comes to me will never go hungry, and he who believes in me will never be thirsty. That comes from John 6:35. Number 2, Jesus spoke about the light of the world. When Jesus spoke again to the people, he said, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. That comes from John 8:12. Number 3, I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. He will come in and go out and find pasture. John 10, verse 9. What does it mean about Jesus as the bread of life? What does it mean? When Jesus refers to himself as the bread, what does it mean? Now we can speak up now, okay? That's a question. Spiritual food? Anybody else want to?
There is no life except through Christ. Without Christ, there's only death.
Okay. There's no life except through Christ. That refers to the bread and life. The life part is really the interesting part, or the most important part of that. But refers to the bread. He provides what we need to obtain the life. Okay? It's like a hungering thing. You eat it. And we can connect with that term, bread of life, when we take the Lord's Supper. Number 2, about him being the light of the world. What does it mean about the light?
You don't have Christ in your life, you're walking in the darkness.
You don't have Christ, you're in the dark already, right? I like that way I thought. What you was to say? The truth. The light being referred to as the truth. But if without the truth, you have nothing, right? And the gate. What about the gate? How does he refer to? He refers to himself as being the gate. Miss Johnny.
It opens up. It's something that opens it up for us.
Okay, it's a way open for us, allows us to go through. And if he's the gate, we need to go through him in order to get to the right place. He is the only way. There may be other gates on your pasture, but his is the one gate that you get in to get through him. Only one. Only if he opens those gates in life that we are able to obtain better pasture. Now we're going to move on to the next I am. Before I get into the next I am, Nick Sears told me something today, and I'm not sure if I fully understand it, what he said, but he said when in his studies, he found where that the I am that's being translated I am in John, the original translation was he is. I don't understand that. Does anybody have that in your studies to come across that statement? Every time he refers, when it was translated, it was translated from he is to I am. Is that true? May be true. I just have to do a little deeper study. But if you read it, yes.
I always thought that phrase I am
referring to God. Okay. When you read it in context of the way it was presented by John in answering questions from the Pharisees, He refers to himself as being I am, and that takes them all the way back to the beginning in Genesis, known as Exodus, when God uses the term I am to Moses. And that upset the Pharisees at that time, because they knew that that phrase, or those two words, I am, refers to God himself. Now, I don't know what was used to be translated from, but I thought that was interesting when Nick was really sincere about the way he studied it. And so I need to dig a little deeper as well. Everybody has these electronic things, so you can check that electronic thing and see what it comes up to. So the next I am comes from John chapter 10, 11 through 18. And I want to like to read these things in context. That way we get the why did he say it this way. John chapter 10. Somebody closed my book, and I think I already did it. Okay, I'm going to start with verse 11. He says here, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd who owns the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. When the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it, then the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it. The man runs away because he is a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. He repeats again, I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me. Just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. And then he says, I have other sheep that are not of this sheep pen. I must bring them also. They too will listen to my voice, and there shall be one flock and one shepherd. The reason my Father loves me is that I lay down my life only to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have authority to lay it down and authority to take it up again. This command I received from my Father. Pretty interesting passage. There's a lot of things that he says here that might upset people. And at the time when he said these things, he was alive and well. He didn't lay down his life yet. But he was already telling them that's what's going to happen in the near future, that he was going to actually lay down his life for his sheep. But what about the other sheep? Who was we referring to, the other sheep, do you think? To the Gentiles. Was that what you're going to say? He's referring to the other people. And I'm included in that other group of people. You are included in the other group of people. Are we all Jews here? No. Well, we're Gentiles. Okay? So I'm glad that he included us as the other sheep, that he wants to bring us into that saved condition. We need to follow the shepherd, the one who owns us. Jesus owns us. Once we go in through that gate, we become his. So we have a question, comment?
Well, that is the promise that he made to Abraham, that through his seed,
All nations.
the universe would be blessed with the grace.
That's right. He said that all nations would be blessed, not just the Jewish nation then. Okay? So it was just, he was going to be the father of many nations. And we were part of that, many nations. Any other comments about that point? Okay, he says in John chapter 11, we're going to move down to chapter 11, starting with verse 21. Now, this is a story about when Lazarus died. It's kind of a lengthy story, but then at the end here, he tells us something about himself. Lord, Martha said to Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. but I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask." Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise again." And Martha answered, "I know he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day." So she understands that there's going to be a life after. Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life." There it is, the I am. "He who believes in me will live, even though he dies. And whoever lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this?" "Yes, Lord," she told him. "I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who was to come into the world." And after she had said this, she went back and called her sister Mary aside. "The teacher is here," she said, "and is asking for you." When Mary heard this, she got up quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not yet entered the village, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. When the Jews had been with Mary in the house, comforting her, notice how quickly she got up and went out. They followed her, and supposing she was going to the tomb to mourn there. When Mary reached the place where where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. "Where have you laid him?" he asked. "Come and see, Lord," they replied. Jesus wept. When the Jews said, "See how he loved him?" But some of them said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying?" Jesus, once more, deeply moved, came to the tomb. It was a cave with a stone laid across the entrance. "Take away the stone," he said. "But Lord," said Martha, the sister of the dead man, "by this time there is a bad odor, for he had been there 4 days." Then Jesus said, Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone. Then Jesus looked up and said, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe that you sent me." Then he said this, Jesus called in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." The dead man came out, his hands and feet wrapped in strips of linen and cloth around his face. Jesus said to them, "Take off the grave clothes and let him go." Okay, that's a long story, but it gives us the idea that he was the resurrection and the life. That's what he said he was. Now, I read a couple of days ago that the only person ever to actually been raised was Jesus. Because Lazarus died later on. He performed a miracle, and Lazarus died later on. Because otherwise, he would still be running around, wouldn't he? Lazarus he died, but wasn't his resurrection. The only person ever to have a resurrection was Jesus. He overcame death, and he's still alive. We have witnesses to prove it, that he rose and went up into heaven as a person everybody remembered and recognized. He had witnesses that we have witnesses from the Bible here that reveals that he was the only one ever raised. But God promises everyone that there's going to be a resurrection. So he has to ask the people standing around him, "Did I not tell you that if you believe, you would see the glory of God?" This is what he meant about being resurrected, that you're going to see the glory of God. Now, what does he mean by that statement? You remember earlier that Martha understood what the resurrection was. At least she thought she did. That we was going to be raised in a new life. But she's asking Jesus to perform this miracle on Lazarus to bring him up from the dead to walk on this life, back in this life. That's not the same resurrection that Jesus experienced. I just told you that he went on, lived a short time after. We don't have no idea how long after, but he died again. Jesus didn't. But through Jesus dying on the cross and was buried, and 3 days later was raised again, he didn't die again. He stayed alive. So that's a different kind of a resurrection there. Never have to die again. What do we think of that? Are we looking forward to that? Are you looking forward to that resurrection? There's some nods. Yes, we're looking forward to it. Do we want it? Yes. I think we all want that. Some of us, there's a song that's out there. I want to go, but I don't want to go now. But that's we kind of laugh at that joke or that song. But we should really be ready for that. Okay, let me go on. Sometimes I get too deep even for myself. Number 6, chapter 14, verse 6. Jesus answered, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Now, that's a lengthy reading from chapter 14, verse 1 through 21. But didn't we just kind of get that already? Jesus is the gate. There's no way. We're not going to be able to get to the Father except through him. Sometimes we say this you're not going to get through there, bother my kids, except you go through me, right? Over my dead body, you're going to do this. People have said that. This is what Jesus has said, that we're not going to have heaven, we're not going to get to God unless we go through him. And then he says he's the resurrection, that you still got to go through what he's going to go through in order to get that resurrection, right? You still need to be in Jesus. But right here, and then we can back it up to him being the light, the truth. I am the way and the truth and the life. Okay, so he combines all of those things together, that he's the only way we're going to get to heaven. In order to do that, we need to follow the truth, and we need to obtain the life, the truth, the bread. He is the bread. No one comes to the Father except through him. So he's saying almost the same thing in one phrase here. Does anybody have a problem with it? You want to say anything different? It's okay if you do. When Jesus said this?
Gary,
Yes.
it builds truth in us, builds trust.
Building truth in us also builds trust in Jesus.
Yes.
It does.
We can know that it's going to happen.
We know it. And how do we know it? This word, right? This right here.
Right.
So in order to get there, we need to go through this. We need to internalize it. We need to follow it. Then we'll go there. Right? Do I got that right? Sometimes I confuse myself, but that's okay. I think I got it. But you see, what I'm trying to say is, when I'm thinking about that out loud, it's simple. It's not difficult. We're little children. A lot of people equate this Bible as a 4th to the 5th grade level reading. If they can understand it, why shouldn't we? And we're adults. We want to complicate things, but it's not that complicated. Yes, you have something else?
I was just thinking about sanctify them in truth. Thy word is truth. Because it comes into us as we digest it.
That's right. We got to digest the word. Sanctify them in the truth. And God's word is truth. Okay, there's another phrase on that. Let's go to the last one here. Actually, this is the last one. The vine. Chapter 15, verse 5, it says, I am the vine, you are the branches. If a man remains in me, and I in him, he will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. It is important to us to understand that salvation is not a fruit-bearing event, is it? So in this statement, Jesus is talking about our life after we are saved. Then we become fruit-bearing. After we become Christians, we are become part of that vine that he's talking about. And then we're supposed to be bearing fruit after that. And how do we bear fruit?
By remaining in the vine.
By remaining in the vine. But what are we supposed to do?
Remain in the vine.
Remain in the vine. But how are we going to do that?
We stay attached to Jesus. That's the point that I want to make is based on my legalistic upbringing, which had very much to do with you have to do all these works, and you have to keep doing them. You have to do them even better and harder. And so I was always straining to bear fruit. But the example here, the vine and the branches, doesn't talk about how the branch is out there really working hard to bear fruit. It's the natural outcome of being connected to the vine. There was a country preacher who talked about that. It really stuck with me. He says the sap comes up from the root into the vine. And that sap flows through the branch, and it's the sap that makes the fruit appear on the branch. The branch doesn't sit out there and say, I'm going to make some fruit. Oh, look at me working hard to make fruit. It just stays connected to the vine. And as a natural outcome of being connected to the vine, that sap flows into the branch and produces much fruit. That can be a great deal of relief.
Okay, sometimes people equate, but I liked what you said. Okay, I liked everything that you said. But there's also a part of the scripture that says that we're supposed to go out and spread the gospel. And some people equate that as bearing fruit. But we don't really save anyone. We just plant the seeds, and God gives the increase, right? So, and those are that way, at that point of view, we're really not bearing the fruit, because God is bearing the fruit.
So another way of bear is to hold on to or to carry.
Okay.
So you've seen a branch on a tree that's heavily laden with fruit, right? That's bearing fruit. It's holding that fruit up.
Okay.
It didn't produce the fruit on its own, but it's the part of that tree that's out there holding.
Oh, holding it all up. That's right. Okay.
Now, I want to go back just a little bit. 15. So another part of my legalistic upbringing was, you got to watch it every minute or else you're going to get chopped off. Well, there are two ways to be removed from the vine, and they're both listed right here.
Mm-hmm.
One is if you don't have fruit, God cuts you off. And the other way is if you choose to remove yourself. So that comes later. If anyone does not remain in me. So you can either be cut off because you didn't have any fruit, meaning you weren't connected, or you can disconnect yourself. Both really have the same outcome.
Okay. Lee.
What Mark is saying is confirmed by James. James says that if you have a correct type of faith, if your faith is genuine to God, then works will flow from you. Works will come out of you. They will naturally happen. So to bear fruit would be just a consequence or a result of your faith.
Mm-hmm.
So your faith is the strength of your belief and trust and understanding of God and his perfect plan and his salvation for you. So out of that real faith comes this beautiful work that just naturally bubbles up out of you because you faith in this God that you love so much. And yes, you can very much, if your faith wanes, if your faith kind of wavers, then obviously the things that come out of you can waver also. So, I like the way that he's putting that. You bear fruit because you're a part of the vine. He's the vine dresser, and he can very much come in and snip us right off.
Mm-hmm.
So the faith that we have for our God, be it genuine, then it will automatically, through most of the time things we don't understand, or we after the fact that we do it, we go, wow, that was God. Comes out of us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those moments that we need the word, those moments that we need when we pray to God, when we're teaching, we go, God, please give me these words so that I don't misrepresent. Please help me in this situation with this person in need. Help me. And the things come out of us because our faith is genuine. That flows out of us, those things.
Okay.
And by the way, what you said absolutely flows out of us. We want to go tell people about Christ.
Exactly. And that's part of it. And then God gives the increase. I want to read along with, because I only read one verse out of that 15. Let's go and let's read 1 through 8, chapter 15. Jesus says, I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does not bear fruit, that does bear fruit, he prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. You are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Remain in me, and I will remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. If a man remains in me, and I in him, he will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If anyone does not remain in me, he is like a branch that is thrown away and withers, and such branches are picked up, thrown into the fire, and burned. If you remain in me, and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be given you. This is to my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. And I agree with you what you said, Lee, about if once you're in Jesus, all these riches and blessings come out of us, and we're going to be poured out into the other people that we come in contact. They're gonna see that. They want to know, where did you get that enthusiasm? Where did you get that love? Where do you get that compassion? Well, we can say, where? Where did we get it? It comes from God. It comes from Jesus. That flows right through us. Because we're part of the branch. Okay? We can't do it by ourselves. We need to have His source and or flowing right through us. So I believe that. Well, I covered the parts. I mean, I like to cover them. Checked off all the things. I've done it. But whenever there's some other questions that come up after a lesson like this, and it comes after the lesson, come back. Ask me. We're going to study it together. You know, if you have some questions about any of these points, whether it's Lee that teaches it or me teaches it or Jeff, I think be bold enough to ask, because we don't get it all right. We try. We're working hard at it. So just don't put all your stock into everything that we say. Put your stock in what the Word says. Okay? And the truth is going to bear itself out of the Word. Okay? If anybody has any problems with sin in their lives, or you need to put on Jesus, this is a good time to do it. You don't have a whole lot of a full congregation to see it happening. But, you know, we don't have to have a crowd of witnesses to see it happen. You can choose to do it after everybody's gone. You know, being baptized is a special thing between you and God and Jesus. But it takes another person in order to do that. You know, but we want to be along witnessing that event if that's what you want to do in your life. If you want to need some help from us, some encouragement to overcome a sin or a problem. We don't have any special powers other than prayer, using the word to help us get through it. We're not the judges. We can't judge you. Only God is the judge. And that's the way we need to leave that. Okay. So Daryl has a song.
Let's stand.